Hello. This one I've literally just decided to do on the fly. About 5 minutes ago, I thought I'd do this. I've got a bit of time to kill, so I thought I'd get this one out. It's just literally, I just thought I'd show you my DVD collection. That simple. Just take you through it, show you some of my favourites, how I've got it all laid out. So let's get on with it. So we'll start over here. So this is the opposite angle of what you usually see. As you can see, that's the backdrop of the usual videos, and the collection really starts right here. So it is kind of alphabetical order, but when we moved in, Amy insisted that I put it all into different genre orders as well, just so when the mood takes her, she can go and find what she wants in a certain section. So to appease myself, I tried to alphabetize the genres as best as possible. So we start off here. As you can see, this is like a little animation section. So we've got stuff like Tintin, which are reviewed already, some Disney's. Oh, I should point out that this is also mine and Amy's collection combined. So these aren't all mine. But a good guide for me is, if you've heard of the movie, it's probably mine. If it's some obscure little movie that you've never heard of, it's probably Amy's. Not so much in this section, but once you get into the horror and thriller section, which is more her area, then those are hers. So yeah, that's really just the animation section there. You got some Studio Ghibli ones, Roger Rabbit, and then we move on to, this is what I call the action adventure section. So I've got the Bond movies, incomplete. I haven't got nothing against George Lazenby and Timothy Dalton. In fact, On Her Majesty's Secret Service is one of my favourite Bond movies, so I really need to get that one. As is Skyfall. That's criminally missing out of all the Daniel Craig ones. It's my favourite one, and yet it's the one I don't have. Die Hard, I've got the real Die Hard movies. The two recent ones I don't really consider to be Die Hard movies at all. They're just standard Bruce Willis action, as with where he just happens to be called John McClane. Moving down, so carry on with the action adventure section. Indiana Jones, again, just the original three. Wouldn't you know it, as soon as I start talking, this road becomes the busiest road in the world. Jaws, Jewel in the Nile and Romancing the Stone, they're Amy's, but they were favourites from childhood. Kill Bill, lots of Tarantino. Hocus Pocus and The Grinch definitely aren't mine. Actually, I don't mind The Grinch. Mary Poppins isn't mine, but it's one of my favourites. Just Ask for Diamond. That's a movie. If anyone saw it, that's like a childhood favourite that no one knows. But I reviewed it last Christmas. Still up there if you want to watch it. And you see, I think that's there because that's kind of the start of the Christmas section. Big fan of Christmas movies, so we have all our Christmas movies in the same place. Two different versions of A Christmas Carol. I think that's the Jim Carrey one. Yeah. This is something I'm going to review this Christmas because this is my favourite childhood thing ever. It's a little BBC series called The Box of Delights. It was probably the first thing I could ever remember actually watching on TV back in like 1984. It's just magical. You're going to be hearing me banging on a lot about that in the future. Home Alone, Gremlins, of course, a great Christmas movie. People watch that at any time of year, but I think the best time of year is to watch Gremlins. I think that's one. That's the Gremlins collection. That's 1 and 2. But the first one, the best time of year, is definitely at Christmas, because it takes on this extra layer of devilry when you watch it. So here we're getting into the comedies. Got Alan Partridge, of course, Anchorman. That's not Anchorman 1 or 2, that's Anchorman 1, and basically the first take of the movie, which I think all the deleted scenes pretty much made another movie, so there's an extra DVD on that. I think it's called Wake Up Ron Burgundy. Anger Management is not mine. Arthur is. That's one of my favourite comedies, as is Being John Malkovich. Move on. So up there, that's my graphic novel collection. Needs adding 2 more. Of course, Big Trouble in Little China, signposter, Kurt Russell's signature there, and it does have John Carpenter's signature on here somewhere. It's a bit faded now. That might be it. These when I moved in here, I basically just put everything I'd never read up on the shelf for the intention of picking at it. So these are all still to be consumed, so it's not quite that impressive. But anyway, this is just going to be on DVDs, this one. These were, so very quickly, these are just something that I picked up in the charity thing the other day that I found. Quantum Leap, E.T. That I had as a kid, and then I don't know what happened to it, but I rebought it. It's the one that claims it's written by George Lucas, even though it totally isn't. And Stephen King. But anyway, so on with the DVDs. So this is continuing the comedy section. Let's run through these. Clerks 2, Cock and Bull Story, Fish Called Wanda, Frank, Graduates, Guest House Paradiso, a bit of Rick and Aid. Sorry about the focus quality on this. This is pretty bad. Hitchhiker's Guide. Knocked Up in the 40-year-old version. Bit of an Apatow box set there. Laurel and Hardy, big Laurel and Hardy fan. This is something I recently found at... it was car boot sale, but the guy had the best DVD collection in the world. I could have taken a lot. It was so good. And so I just bought a few of him, but MASH was one that that's my most recent acquisition. It sent me on a bit of a Robert Altman quest, really. I've bought a few more of his recently, sort of reacquainted myself with Robert Altman. Python, of course. Meaning of Life and Holy Grail. I do have Life of Brian. Yes, I do. I stuck it there because that one, I believe technically that's just known as Life of Brian with these two. Monty Python is the official title, the official release title. So why it goes there. Ricky Gervais, Shaun of the Dead, Spinal Tap with Nell and I. Okay, so here we get into the costume drama section. This is largely more Amy stuff. Some Bleak House. Goes on down here. Elizabeth, Gosford Park, Gone with the Wind, Oliver Twist. She loved Oliver Twist, was obsessed. She got about 3 different versions of it. The Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice, which I've never seen. Tessa the D'Urbervilles. I mean, I'm a big Robert Hardy fan, so that's a good one. Now, here we get into, I like to call this section Cult TV. This is basically all my favourite TV. So we've got Bottom, Brass Eye, Breaking Bad, classic era Doctor Who. I would like to own more of them. I will be reviewing Doctor Who. I think probably when the new series comes out, I'm going to go into Doctor Who a lot, reviewing the new series and some classic era stuff. But I would like to add a lot to this collection. Actually, I've been meaning to get a lot more, especially these ones which are where they take serials with some missing episodes that were wiped in the 60s by the BBC and that animate the missing episodes to old recordings, because the dialogue track still exists, even though the footage doesn't. Friends, that shouldn't be there. That should be up here somewhere. Don't know why that's there. Futurama, Game of Thrones. Can't see a thing because it's all out of focus. I'm Alan Partridge. Jekyll, a great sort of modern take on Jekyll. There's a blinged up ET there. That's another recent acquisition. Now let's open the cabinet. So this is you'll be familiar with this cabinet because you've seen it in the background of all the reviews. Let's have a look at what actually is in here. Kids in the Hall, one of my favourite sketch shows from Canada. Well, I mean, it's one of my favourite sketch shows, and it's from Canada. It's pretty much the only sketch show from Canada I know. So the sun's shining on these. But League of Gentlemen. Pretty much everything the League of Gentlemen's done, apart from the recent ones, which I don't think you can actually get on DVD yet. My Wrong, some more, and Nathan Barley, 2 Chris Morris stuff. Neverwhere, which I reviewed. That's a New Statesman. Love a bit of Rick Mail. Peep Show, and Prisoner. Talked about this. Talked about these ones, of course, in depth. I've got everything Red Dwarf related. I think I've shown you all these before in the Red Dwarf videos. Series 1 to 12. Yeah, I've Beat the Geek and the Body Snatcher collection. Robot Chicken. I got into Robot Chicken a lot. Especially when they did the Star Wars stuff. I really like that stuff. Spaced, of course, classic. 30 Rock, that's something my brother got me into. Very, very well written series. I've only got the one, I think, but I think that's somebody else's. But those are available on streaming services now, so they're very easy to get hold of. Tintin, as you know as well, big Tintin fan. That's the Nickelodeon series from 1992, not the old French Adventures of Tintin series. Twilight Zone, this is Twilight Zone series 1 to 3. They did 5 series altogether. Big fan of this. Really, really well written, tight little stories. Very good. So I'm wobbling, but my arm's giving way a bit. And I intend to get the series 4 and 5 because I mean, it's a classic in America, but it's not that well known here. I think most people just know the theme tune, but it should be well known, much better known, because it's one of the best written little anthology. It was the Black Mirror of its day, without a doubt. Young Ones, of course. Now this section is the documentary section. I've got a few of these, of course. You know, I'm a big fan of travel docs presented by comedians. Michael Palin, of course, I mentioned in previous videos, and that one's Billy Connolly there going around Canada. That's great. I don't have his world tour of Scotland and his world tour of Australia that he did, but they which was a series he did, I think, back in the early 90s, which was him just going around. The first series was him going around Scotland, like a travel doc, but that was actually interspersed with bits of his stand-up. He recorded the series whilst on tour, and then he did a second series set in Australia, and that was a very funny series that I used to watch a lot, but I don't know if you can get that on DVD. Future Shock, that's like the story of... Oh, hang on, I'm going to adjust myself because I'm shaking a lot here. That's better. Future Shock, that's the story of 2000 AD. The interesting thing about that is I have actually met a lot of the current staff on 2000 AD through going to conventions over the past few years, and so a lot of the people they interview towards the end of that, it's like, oh, know them. This is something I might talk about a lot in the future. It's one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. It's Andrew Marr's History of the World, and it is just that. It's just a history. Well, it's history of civilization, really. But it's one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. I literally know more about. It's one of those ones you watch and you feel like you know more about everything just when you get through it, all 8 episodes. It's a really great series. I'm going to cover that. I'm probably going to do a video on that at some point. Koina Kwatsi, one of the most beautiful films ever made. Just entirely made up of footage, no dialogue or anything. Paraquatsi is the sequel, which I've never actually watched. Lost in La Mancha, of course, about the ill-fated attempt by Terry Gilliam to do Don Quixote, which he's now finally completed. Is going to be released this year, 20 years after the documentary was made about the first ill-fated attempt. Michael Palin, a documentary about Howard Marks. No, that's Howard Marks' lecture, I guess. Chili Peppers concert. This is something I'm probably going to talk about a lot as well in the future. It's the story of the film. It's Mark Cousins' 16-hour opus about the history of cinema. It is hands down the greatest film documentary I've ever seen. Okay, this is the drama section. So I got that's another one from that guy who I bought MASH from, about Schmidt. It's just all films of that quality. You very rarely find in car boot sales, I have to say. So we got The Beach, Birdman, Britannia Hospital. I do have the incomplete Mick Travis, Lindsay Anderson trilogy. I've got that. If and where is it? No, Lucky Man. So I think I'll do a video on all of them at some point. Classics here: Castaway, Casablanca, Factotum, Falling Down, one of the funniest films ever made. As is Fight Club as well, actually. Filth, Ghost. That same is Good Shepherd, one of the most underrated films in recent years. Good Will Hunting, Grand Budapest Hotel, High Rise, King's Speech, Kramer vs. Kramer. This is my pride and joy. This is my Stanley Kubrick box set. It's not all his films, as you can see. It's the last 80 ever made, plus a documentary on him. So it's everything from Lolita to Eyes Wide Shut. Prior to this, I'd say his first three films I don't really... Well, The Killing's a good film, but his first two, at least, I don't really care for. And The Killing I could sort of take or leave, really. It's a good film, but maybe not one of my favourites. But Paths of Glory is something I really need to get. And Spartacus, just to I guess, complete it, because that is a great film. Maybe not one of my favourite. It's not really a Kubrick film, but it's it's one I need to own for completion's sake. Lenny, which I looked at recently, Laughing Death of Peter Sellers, probably going to look at that at some point. Little Children, a really underrated drama for recent years. This is another one I think I got this week, actually. Long Goodbye. This is something from my Robert Altman haul. Mr. Nice, of course, the Howard Marks. This is the biography starring Rhys Ifans, Natural Born Killers. No Country for Old Men. That's one of the best films of the last 15 years, I'd say. Oh, Lucky Man, of course. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, classic. Rules of Attraction, that's like American Psycho. I actually think that's a better Bret Easton Ellis adaptation than American Psycho, although I do love American Psycho. It's missing Christian Bale. So I'm going to move around here, and we've had to find some spare corners to put all this stuff, so it carries on in the broom cupboard. So that's the Myra Hindley story, not one of mine. Slumdog Millionaire. 21 grams. That's I've mentioned Inarritu recently. That's he's one of the most unsung heroes of cinema of recent years, and I've only seen that once, but I remember thinking it was brilliant, and it's one of those ones I've been wanting to sit down and watch again for ages now, and I haven't. But well, maybe I'll do that tonight. And that's something I've seen that through once, The Wolf of Wall Street, and I've seen bits of it since then, but I haven't sat down and watched the whole thing. through, which so that's something I'm going to have to give a rewatch to at some point. So this is what this section is, the fantasy section. A lot of this is mine. Baron Munchausen. I'm a major Terry Gilliam fan, and so I'm trying to get as many of his as possible. I've got the Brothers Grimm, which isn't even one of his best films, but it's Gilliam, so I'll own it. Conan, Dark Crystal, Dragon Slayer. This is Guillermo del Toro's fantasy trilogy. Of course, he's added to this more recently when he's done The Shape of Water and whatever that Crimson movie was he does. But these are the three of the best. That's his first film, Cronus. Devil's Backbone, which is my favourite of his films, and Pan's Labyrinth, of course, classic. Oh, I didn't know I owned that. I mean, that's one of Amy's. That isn't mine. That's a friend of mine that I've had for years. I've been meaning to give it back to him. Harry Potter. These aren't mine. I mean, I could take or leave Harry Potter, really. Not terrible, but that's the complete collection there, as you can see. More Gilliam, and this is more. When you talk about fantasy, this is more my area. I've got the theatrical cuts of the Hobbits and the special edition. Labyrinth in a box set with Krull, Legend, which I don't really care for, if I'm honest. And here we go, the Lord of the Rings collection. So I've got all the theatrical cuts. I've got the Ralph Bakshi animated version there, and of course the special editions all on DVD because they're all 20 years old now. Pirates of the Caribbean, Princess Bride, one of my favourite films. Now this is the Willow Time Bandits. Now this is what I call the gangster / crime section. So we've got Bonnie and Clyde, Bound, the Cowsey's first film. Possibly my favourite of their films, actually. Godfather, In Bruges, and then the Guy Ritchie stuff, Lock, Stock, Snatch, Layer Cake. More Tarantino, of course, Jackie Brown, Miller's Crossing, classic, Once Upon a Time in America, Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, Scarface, Sin City, and The Untouchables. Love all them, and they're buried away at the bottom of the closet here. Okay. So the collection carries on into the living room, and this, as I said before, this is the section. A lot of this isn't mine. We're getting into like gothic horror here and flat out horror. So, and a lot of this is more obscure, but I mean, there's still stuff you probably recognise. Bram Stoker's Dracula, From Hell, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Twilight. Those are not mine. None of this is mine. Underworld. I don't really care for them. I must say. Amityville Horror. I mean, practically the only stuff in this section, if it's a zombie film, it's that's not important. If it's a zombie film like Brain Dead or Dawn of the Dead, it's mine. These two I think are mine, but everything else, if it's just sort of creepy stuff, then not so much. So The Exorcist is Amy's, although I do like The Exorcist. Evil Dead, of course, mine. I got some John Carpenter stuff a year or two ago on Blu-ray, so that's mine. Dusk Till Dawn, from Dusk Till Dawn trilogy, mine. Again, Peter Jackson's Frighteners, mine. A lot of the Peter Jackson stuff I bought just because I did. I reviewed all his films, and so it was good to fill in some gaps here and there. Halloween, of course, John Carpenter, but Amy already owned that. Hellraiser is my favourite horror movie franchise, and I might review all these, or maybe do like one video on the complete franchise for Halloween. Although I haven't seen the latest one yet. So, Kill List, probably the best horror movie of the past 10 years. Or, well, actually, these two probably. Let the Right One In, probably the best. Big Clive Barker fan. That's Lord of Illusions. That's his third film, and I've just ordered actually Nightbreed, the Cabal edition, but I haven't actually received that yet. That's on its way. Pits of Darkness, Carpenter's most underrated movie. Yeah, that's Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. That's and that does belong in the horror because it's one of the scariest. The stuff that scares me isn't. I don't really get scared by ghosts and ghoulies, but the stuff that scares me is stuff like this and Deliverance, where it's real, but it's horrific. It has to be realistic, I think, to really chill me. This is just a very small musical section, which probably my favourite is Bugsy Malone. I've still never seen Dirty Dancing. I might do I'm keep meaning to do an initial reactions to that at some point. Maybe. Rocky Horror. I've got a bit of a fetish. I think that's the only way you describe your fandom of Rocky Horror is fetish. So now we're going to get into more my section as well. This is the sci-fi section. So we've got the first four Alien movies in the box set. This is actually one of the best. This and the Blade Runner box set, which has like 5 different cuts of the movie. They're 2 of the best box sets I own. Really, really extensive. 2 versions of each movie, and all the special features and making of. And it was one of those no stone left unturned box sets, which I really appreciate. Avatar, I don't mind Avatar. I know it's people are very sniffy about it, but I enjoy it. Bad Taste, of course, I love. Back to the Future, my favourite film. That's the trilogy box set there. Children of Men, great movie. Dark City, great cult movie, one I really enjoy. If you haven't seen it, check out Dark City. It's really interesting, little sci-fi dystopian movie. More John Carpenter's first film, big inspiration for Red Dwarf there. Basically hippies in space. District 9, Dreamcatcher. That's a guilty pleasure. That is. I know it's a terrible movie, but it's a terrible movie I really enjoy. And finally, we're on the final section here. So what have we got? Donnie Darko, Escape from New York on Blu-ray. I don't have Escape from LA, but it's available on like every streaming service for some reason, but that one isn't. I have to admit, that's another one I know is a terrible film, but it's a real guilty pleasure. I could happily sit down and watch that now with a big grin on my face. I think Kurt Russell's even more entertaining in that one than he is in the first one. Mad Max Anthology, that's all 4 movies. Big Planet of the Apes fan. This is the original lot. I haven't got the new trilogy, so I'll have to get that at some point just to make the collection complete. And, well, obviously get the Tim Burton version as well, which, again, that's a guilty pleasure. I should do a top 10 guilty pleasures, actually, because that's a film I could happily watch at some point. Maybe that'll be my next. I've got a couple of ideas for top 10s, but that's coming up. This is another one from the guy that had the best DVD collection in the world, as was Total Recall as well. So episodes 1 to 6 Star Wars, all the Terminators, got 2 versions of Terminator 2. I think that one's got the director's cut on it, and that's got the special features. So for completeness sake, I've doubled it there. And well, actually, I think that version was Amy's and that version was mine. But we had a big cull when we moved in together. Anything that we doubled up on, we gave away. But I kept both versions of Terminator 2 just because they had 2 different versions of the film. I probably should have given that away as well, because both versions of the Thing, the new version and the old version, are on this Blu-ray set, but I didn't realise I had it on DVD already. This is the superhero section, so we've got all the Batmans, Blade, and the Dark Knight, which of course is Batman as well. The only Batman I haven't got is Batman versus Superman. I'm probably not going to get that, to be honest. Deadpool, Dredd, Kick-Ass, the Marvel box sets these are. So this is everything from Iron Man right through to Ant-Man. They haven't brought out Phase 3 yet. That's Amy. It's a terrible movie. Superman, Watchmen. So I've got three different versions of Watchmen. That's the director's cut. That's the motion comic. And that's Tales from the Black Freighter. V for Vendetta there. So we're getting into... This is the thriller section. Again, most of this is Amy's. It's, a few here like Basic Instinct, Fugitive, Hannibal Lecter trilogy. That could go in the horror section easily. And, of course, the Alfred Hitchcock section. The quintessential thrillers. And then finally, just more thrillers. Memento, Misery, 1 Hour Photo, Ripley's Game, the better Ripley movie than the talented Mr. Ripley. Seven, of course. Sleuth, one of my favourite films. Technically a thriller. It's more a chamber piece. Whitechapel, Panic Room, and then two very, very small sections here. This is the war section. This I was kind of I bought when I was going through my John Woo phase. So I got this. You may have noticed the killer in the action section as well. Such a technically this is a Vietnam movie, but it's the most bizarre Vietnam movie you've ever seen. Deer Hunter is the best Vietnam movie ever made. Bullet in the Head is the most bizarre Vietnam movie ever made. Memphis Belle. This is something that Amy and I bonded over. I've never really been a big fan of Top Gun. This film came out like 4 years after Top Gun, and I believe it to be the better aviation war movie. Going to war in a planes movie. And this is we end here on the Western section, mainly my movies: Dances with Wolves, Django Unchained, Hateful Eight, Fistful of Dynamite. I got Fistful of Dynamite and Once Upon a Time in the West here. Big Leone fan. I'm going to do a lot on Leone in the future. The Revenant and Silverado at the very end of the collection. So, there you have it. So, now, all that remains to do is to settle down and watch some of them. What we've got here. Oh, this is what I was watching yesterday. This is perfect. Weekday afternoon viewing. This is North by Northwest, the quintessential Alfred Hitchcock thriller. Maybe I'll watch that now.